I have worked as a volunteer at the Waverly Hill Sanatorium, and I have been on many tours and investigations. I'll start by saying this. It doesn't matter who you are or what your beliefs are. Things happen in that building that are not explainable. I've seen people get possessed. I've had something attempt to take control of me as well. I've heard voices with nobody around. I've smelled cigars with nobody smoking. I've been pushed up against a wall, seen a doppelganger, watched inanimate objects move on their own. You name it, it's happened there. But the most impressive thing to me is when I was doing an overnight investigation with two small groups in the building. I walked down to where the restrooms are, while my partner, cousin, and his wife, they were standing on the 4th floor, along with a couple of people from the other group. My partner is a complete non-believer. She refuses to accept that anything is paranormal. When I walked up to the 4th floor, though, they weren't there. I ended up finding them all the way on the 2nd floor, shaking. Apparently, after I had walked downstairs, they all saw the exact same thing at the same time. Keep in mind, a couple of them are total strangers. They all saw a very large black shadow move towards them in the hallway, as well as a smaller shadow come crawling on the floor rapidly. My partner, who doesn't believe, was in tears. None of the people in that group would go back to the 4th floor again. It really is something to take a total skeptic and let them see something so unexplainable for themselves. This happened about 5 years ago. So please be patient with me, as I may not remember every detail or moment exactly correctly. That being said, this whole experience is burned pretty intensely in my mind, so I remember about 90% of it pretty well. I'm a 26-year-old man, making me about 21 when this event occurred. I live in southern Ohio, about 45 minutes away from Cincinnati. I went to a smaller college in the area, and I was pretty isolated from most of my friends and family during the week. My friends all went to their various choices of college throughout the Midwest, and my family remained in my hometown. I ended up at a school alone because I had a rather specific major, and this was one of the few colleges in the country that had accommodated me. Luckily, my girlfriend went to college fairly close to me, so I would often find myself making 2 or 3 trips a week to see her and study with her. On most weekends, I would go on road trips to visit my friends, considering their campuses were a lot bigger and more fun than my small town college. During this particular weekend in question, I was getting ready to make about a 2-hour trip to see my friend Kyle at his school, the name of which I probably shouldn't disclose. I had made the same trip about 30 times before, so I knew the route pretty well at this point, and didn't even have to use a GPS to get there. I left on a Friday afternoon once I was done with classes for the day, and I was set to arrive at Kyle's dorm at about 8 o'clock p.m, right on time to go out for a night of binge drinking and eating garbage food. Oh, the joys of college. Anyway, I set off at about 5:50, and was roughly 15 minutes into my trip when my girlfriend called me. This was pretty unusual, considering I had already told her that I was driving to Kyle's, so I answered quickly, thinking that something must have been wrong. She was working that night, and her car had broken down in a dorm room parking lot when she was leaving to go work a shift. She figured that I wasn't too far into my trip and wanted to know if I could give her a quick ride to work before I got too far away. Me, being the dutiful boyfriend I was, agreed to come back and get her since I was only about 20 minutes from her location. I was already pretty far off campus, so I pulled over my car on the highway and used a GPS to see if there was a faster route to her from where I was. The map on my phone revealed that there was an exit coming up that would take me to a side street that I could use to get to her fairly quickly, so I texted her that I was on my way and set off towards my new destination. I had seen the exit in question plenty of times, but I had never had any reason to get off on it. So once I exited the highway, my surroundings were completely unfamiliar to me. The exit took me off onto a road that had dense woods on the right side and the highway on the left side. My phone informed me that my next turn wasn't for about 5 miles, so I had a ways to go until I had to do any navigating. About a half a mile later, the road had turned and there were now trees on either side of me, and to be honest, it was a really beautiful sight. It was October, so the surrounding woods were a mixture of various warm colours, and I was actually really enjoying my little detour. The entire area was wooded on either side, with only the occasional break in tree line for a driveway and a mailbox to poke out. The houses were hard to see through the trees, but from the few glimpses I did manage to get, the houses were actually pretty nice. It was getting a little dark, and I had about a mile to go before I had to turn, when I noticed a Toyota with the hood popped open further down the road. As I approached, I noticed a man in a shirt and tie with his head under the hood, seemingly with a broken down car, obviously. There was no traffic to be seen behind me, so I stopped for a moment to ask him if everything was okay, and if he needed to borrow my phone or anything. He didn't seem to hear me at first, so a little louder this time, I said, "Hey man, is everything okay?" This time, he seemed to have heard me, and he lifted up his head away from the engine and looked up at me. He seemed like a completely normal guy, and he had a normal face to match. The best way I could describe him is just pedestrian looking, I guess. He had short brown hair, brown eyes, and a 5 o'clock shadow. He smiled at me and said that he was on his way home from work and that something had gone wrong with his engine. I offered him my phone in case he wanted to call anyone to get picked up or get the car towed or something. He replied, "Oh, nah, that's okay. I have a car service that will come get my car for me. But they're closed until tomorrow morning though, so I hate to ask, but could you possibly give me a ride to my brother's house? He lives only 4 minutes away from here." This absolutely should have been a red flag for me. I think I was a little stunned by how normal this guy seemed, considering that most hitchhikers on TV are crazy or axe murderers, right? Why couldn't he have used my phone to call his brother? I guess I just wasn't thinking clearly at the time. But hindsight is 20/20, and I'm well aware I made a bad decision that night. I was physically much bigger than him, and he was driving a nice car, so I figured he wasn't a weirdo or local crazy person, and I could overpower him if I needed to. So I agreed to give him a quick ride to his brother's house, since it was on the way to my girlfriend's anyway, who would later be livid with me for taking so much time to get her to work. But that's a story for a different time. I unlocked the door for him to get in, and he pointed me in the direction of his brother's house, and we set off on our way. Things were pretty normal for a few minutes, and I was starting to feel like maybe I did the right thing. But then, things started getting weird. The first thing that made me uncomfortable was the way he acted every time there was a swear word in the music I was listening to. He was almost flinching every time 50 Cent said fuck or bitch. And I picked up on it pretty quickly, so I changed the song thinking that he was just really against swearing or something. About a minute after I changed the song though, and there was no swearing in this one, he reached up and slammed his hand on the radio's power button and turned it off. It wasn't crazy hard or anything, but it was definitely enough to get me to notice. I tried to make light of the situation and said, "Not your style, huh?" But this question was met with complete silence. At this point, I was ready for this guy to get out of my car, so I asked him, "So how much further do we have to go? I have to be somewhere soon and I can't be late." He said we had about 4 minutes to go, which immediately sent up warning signals in my head, considering that he had told me the same thing about 8 minutes ago. So I decided that that was enough. I didn't think he was dangerous or anything, but I figured our destination was further than he was letting on, and he was lying, so I wouldn't take him despite the distance. It was getting late, and I wasn't trying to face my girlfriend's wrath too, so I told him this was as far as I could go, and he'd have to walk the rest of the way. His mood changed immediately, but instead of getting angry, which I was completely expecting, he became panicky and was practically begging me to take him the rest of the way. His overreaction set off pretty much every alarm I had in my head, so I told him to remove himself from my car before I had to remove him myself. It was then that he pulled out this rather oversized wallet and offered to pay me to take him the rest of the way. He tried to pull out a stack of $20 bills, but as he removed them from his wallet, something else fell out of his wallet onto the seat next to him. It was only a split second before he grabbed it and shoved it back into his pocket, but I got a good enough look at it for it to haunt me to this day. Along with his money, a small Ziploc bag full of what I'm confident were adult teeth fell out of his wallet. Front teeth, molars, you name it, it was in there. Everyone I've told this story to has been skeptical of this part, but I'm confident of what it was that I saw. I freaked out worse than I ever have and screamed at him to get out of my car, and he got out immediately and was looking at me with surprise in his eyes on the side of the road. I took off and called the police, who simply told me not to pick up hitchhikers ever again, and that they couldn't do anything since the man didn't commit any crimes. I don't know where he was going or what he was doing, and I'm pretty sure that I don't want to know. I do know, however, that he seemed to have all of his teeth still in his mouth. I don't know whose teeth those were or why he had them, but fucking hell, it was creepy. G'day mates, it's Busta here. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks again to the Hive members that bravely shared their stories for us all here, and I hope you guys are all doing really well. For the chance to have your story feature in a video, you can send your story to my email, which is in the description below. If you would like more scary stories too, you can click on the card at the top right of your screen or on one of the annotations on your screen right now. As always guys, it would be awesome if you could like, share, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for updates throughout the week. And also, if you would like content early and completely advert-free for as little as $1 a month, feel free to click on the link to my Patreon account and sign up there for regular MP3 format stories. Thanks again for tuning in and for all the love as always, guys, and I'll see you mates in the next one.